What's up, guys? Welcome back to Deck Tech for Decks. I'm your host Caleb. Special shout out to my high contributing patrons. Newsome, you rock. Now let's get into today's video, and today we're going to go over the 9 decks I play in paper. I get asked this question all the time: which one of these do you actually build? Which ones do you just throw out into the ether? And guys, honestly, I do playtest all of these decks. If you've been a part of the Discord, you know that I'm on there kind of frequently, testing these decks out and seeing if they do the thing and smash the opponents or not. But with that being said, guys, that's what today is. We're going to go over my top decks that I play, and we're going to rank them kind of based on how often I play them, if I kind of need to take them apart, if I'm never going to take them apart, and if I need to upgrade them so they can get more play. So without further ado, let's get into it. Before we get into the rest of the video, I'm excited to announce I'm partnering with Into the AM. This is a clothing company comprised of artists that want you to feel good and look good at the same time. I'm honestly super excited to partner with them because ever since they sent me some of the shirts, they're all I've been wearing. Guys, if you've been watching the deck techs, you know that's true. Honestly, guys, the fit and feel is perfect. The shirts are snug where you want them to be and super soft. I hate buying an extra large shirt and having to deal with those giant sleeves, but I'm currently wearing an extra large, and as you can see, the sleeves fit perfect. Not to mention they have a wide variety of dope and vibrant designs. My personal favorite are definitely the space and astronaut themed ones. I'd only take a sponsorship from companies that I'd personally be a customer of. And guys, I'm not lying when I say that these shirts will soon replace my wardrobe. So if you guys need a new wardrobe as well, you can use code DECKTECH for 10% off your cart when you check out. Let's kick it off with Feather, guys. Let's go over some of the key cards of the deck. First, we have Feather, and this deck just is Feather. You throw her on the battlefield, and then you get a ton of value. You get a ton of value with stuff like Renegade Tactics. You're going to be able to draw a ton of cards. Assault Strobe, then you have Brute Strength, and you have some pretty cool board wipes with Slaughter the Strong. The only problem with this deck is it consistently kills someone turn 4. What that does is now it leaves 2 players saying, hey, he just murdered that guy, we have to deal with it. And so instantly they kill Feather, and that guy's left out of the game while I try to rebuild my board, and 9 times out of 10 they just keep killing Feather and keep killing her, and you either win the game very fast or do nothing but at least take 1 player out. So it just kind of creates a feel bad for the whole entire table. This deck does literally just need taken apart, but I just haven't because it's only a $25 deck. So might as well just keep it together for a, day where I'm just like, all right, let's do the Feather thing. Moving on, my next least played deck is Lathril, and this is not an Elf Ball deck, this is a Voltron build. We have a lot of equipment in the deck that just get buffed up by either sacrificing a lot of creatures, or they buff Lathril by having a lot of the same creature type, and then we do have a little bit of the same elf synergies in the deck. That way we can add a ton of mana to our mana pool. A ton of ways to untap our commander, that way we can activate her ability more and just start draining our opponents. It's a fun deck, but honestly, I'm not very interested in 2-color commanders that much. I don't know if it's just not enough variety for me, but I've just never found a 2-color commander that just really latches on and keeps me in. So with that being said, Glissa is the next deck on the line, right? Another Golgari deck. But this one's basically a Glissa Necron deck. I was like, hey, let's marry the Necrons and Glissa together. Now Glissa's able to reanimate all our Necrons. It was kind of pretty cool. And you also get all the green synergies, right? You can use Toski or in Frostfang. So now you get consistent card draw. It just turns a mono black deck into a green deck. But honestly, this is probably one of the ones that needs upgraded and has a ton of upgrade potential, especially when we got Lost Caverns of Ixalan. There's a lot of new mill and black cards that I would love to put in this deck. It just has not gotten an upgrade because I'm not that interested in it. And guys, with this video, just leave down in the comments down below if you want me to revisit any of these decks, and I will definitely do that. Moving on to the next play deck, we have Kalia. Now, honestly, this one is mostly played by my girl because she's not that into magic, or not, I won't say that, but she doesn't understand magic that much yet. But Kalia is just swing, drop angel, very easy to understand and very easy to grab a win if you're new to magic. If you're trying to get someone into magic, give them a Kalia deck and they'll have a blast. But this one basically does big angel stuff, right? We have Aurelia the War Leader, Glissa, Blade of Gold Knight, Archangel of Thune. I bought a lot of these cards a long time ago when they were not the price they are now. Holy crap. The price of this deck just keeps going up. It's insane. Resplendent Angel, remember when that was like $5? Crazy. Avacyn, another one. And then we do have the Master of Cruelties in here just because we're terrible people. Again, I just don't play that one much, but can't take it apart because it does still see a good amount of play. Now, moving on to the next deck, we have Magus Lucea Kane with Tyranids. I did make some upgrades to the deck, but honestly, I'm kind of trying to leave it alone just because the aesthetic of the deck is insane. Tyranids look really cool. So we did add Unbound Flourishing to the deck just because it's insane. Doubles up on all the X shenanigans. And yeah, she does do a lot of that. Animar is another great card to put in this deck because, again, just reducing the cost even more. If you don't know how that interaction works, the counters on Animar will actually reduce the cost of your X spells. So they just enter in with more counters. It's pretty dope. Awaken the Woods. I pulled this with Brother... Almost dropped it. Pulled this in Brothers War and instantly shoved it into this deck. It does a lot of work. Vigor, I kind of like this with Blasphemous Act. It's kind of like a board wipe, kind of slash you win the game and you put a ton of counters on all your creatures. It's kind of just busted, so it's kind of cool. Colonial Hydra definitely goes in the deck. One of my favorite cards of all time, by the way. I think it was the first mythic I ever got, so it's kind of like good to the heart and also just an amazing card. We have Orin Frostfang. I love this card as well. Pick it up while you can. It's budget, and I think it went up to like $35 at one point. And then we have Clouth Unrivaled Ancient. You can tell it's a real card because look at that. Oh yeah, it's beautiful. Look at that Pringle. Jesus. Okay, and then the Great Henge, because the Great Henge also a pretty good card. Now, this next deck has a little bit of a story behind it. It is my Pako Haldan deck. It started out as a budget brew, and it has since then got an upgrade. But here's what happened. I started playing with a new playgroup, and they loved free counterspells. And I was like, hey, I'm never been a fan of free counterspells, so I was like, hey, do we want to take all free counterspells out of our deck, or do you want me to add them into my decks? And they're like, I don't think they're a problem. The problem was I play a lot of Jund decks, don't play a lot of blue. So I built a Pako Haldan deck, and I went ahead and put all of the free counter magic in there. We've got your Fierce Guardianship, your Deflecting Swat. And then what happened is I was able to exile all their free counter magic while also using my free counter magic. And they were like, hey, the free counter spells are kind of toxic. We should take them out of my group. Or out of our group. So Pako and Haldan single-handedly got free counter spells banned from my playgroup. So that makes me really happy. But essentially, this deck does need a little bit more tweaking before I share it with the channel. This is the non-budget version. But it does a lot of fun stuff. We have Vile Duplication, Quantum Misalignment, just creating more Pakos because that's insanely broken. Helm of the Host, Passionate Archaeologist. If you don't know, backgrounds are extremely broken with partner commanders because they will trigger twice. So that can just kill a player really fast. Song of Creations is a really fun card in this deck because we don't really care if we don't have a hand. We have a ton of cards in exile to play. Summer Bloom, another very unique card that we get to play. Seize the Day. This is kind of my pet card. It's honestly won me a lot of games, especially in commanders that just care about them attacking. So Pako with the Reaver Cleaver or Sword of Feast and Famine, this can net 2 additional combat steps. It's extremely busted. We also do get to run some cool stuff like Memory Lapse. This is an amazing counterspell. We counter their big bomb and then we get their big bomb. It's won me games. And then Savage Beating, because Savage Beating will just kill people with this deck. Moving on, we have, let's go on to Muldrotha the Gravetide. Now, this is another one that definitely needs an upgrade, and I will upgrade it in the future. Little story behind Muldrotha. This is my oldest deck, the first deck that I built, and it's been torn apart and rebuilt several times. The first time I had to take it apart because I got invited to a playgroup, and granted, this was my first commander deck, so it was bad. No win cons, all interactions. It was a clone deck that played a lot of stuff that killed our opponent's things. So it just killed all of our opponent's creatures but had no way to win the game. The win con was literally Muldrotha and Blackblade Reforged. There was no trample. So as long as they had a 1/1 on the board, they could just keep blocking Muldrotha, and it created a really toxic gameplay pattern where it resulted in some 3-4 hour games. So yeah, that deck had to get taken apart, and I did not get invited back to that play group, but I kind of don't blame them at the same time. But it's since then changed to a Secret Commander deck. You guys know I love Secret Commander. This is a Scarab God Secret Commander deck. I was like, what is Scarab God missing? Scarab God is missing Seedborn Muse. I have gotten Seedborn Muse, Scarab God on the battlefield, and then a Biomancer's Familiar. You will untap with 20 plus zombies and just win the game after that. It's kind of fun. We then do have some other activated ability shenanigans going on with Thrasios, just because Thrasios is busted. Tormod, the Desecrated, generates a ton of zombies, and then again, the Scarab God will start draining them. After that, we have bombs, because again, why not cheat bombs into play with the Scarab God's ability? We have Lathril, Coma Cosmos Serpent, Archfiend of Despair, Beledros Witherbloom, again untapping more lands for more activated abilities. And then from there, we've got some good stuff with Muldrotha. Mystic Remore is extremely busted because you can just keep casting it from the graveyard. Parallel Lives, Mind Crank to mill everybody, get their graveyards nice and full. That way we have targets for the Scarab God. That's kind of what this deck does. Moving on, we have my pet deck, Gyrus, Waker of Corpses, the second commander deck I've ever built. And again, this one does have a lot of building, rebuilding, tearing down, rebuilding. And I recently did it just now, right? We went the Master Multiplied route. If you guys don't know, the interaction's absolutely insane. The fact that you can reanimate the Master Multiplied with Gyrus, and then the token won't sacrifice itself because of the Master Multiplied's ability. Allows us to do some insane stuff and just kind of keep the tokens that Gyrus reanimates. This guy is honestly insanely balanced to the point where basically kills the commander. If they just decided that we could keep the tokens until end of turn, that would be amazing. Or if they decided we didn't have to exile the target, that would be amazing. But no, we have to do both. So again, insanely balanced, but I just love this commander. It is the only deck that I'm running Craterhoof in, and it's because, again, the guy's just kind of super balanced. The combo kind of goes like, you need Anger in the graveyard, Gyrus has to have 6 power, but then you reanimate Avenger of Zendikar. First combat. Second combat, you reanimate Craterhoof, and then you win the game. Now, I know Craterhoof's kind of easy, but Gyrus is so balanced, I'm kind of okay with it. I've shit on Craterhoof in the past just for being too easy of a win con, but I like it in this deck, so I'm just going to play it in this deck. And again, it's the only deck I play Craterhoof in. Again, Buried Alive, pretty good here because it can bend Craterhoof, Avenger of Zendikar, and Anger, getting us to our combo. That's kind of cool. Doom Whisperer is kind of just a discount Grizzlebrand. The fact that you can fill your graveyard with your life is kind of insane. Rakdos, Lord of Riots, does some crazy stuff with Food Chain in this deck. Now you need Rakdos, Lord of Riots, Food Chain, and Terror of the Peaks. And then what happens from there is you cast your Gyrus, deal damage. It's going to lower Gyrus's cost, and then you can kind of generate infinite Food Chain mana, and from there you can cast Gyrus an infinite amount of times and kill everybody with Terror of the Peaks. And then Rakdos, Lord of Riots, is getting rid of the commander tax every time you're doing this because, again, he lowers the cost due to the damage dealt. Pretty cool combo, so I thought I'd include it in the deck. And last but not least, my favorite deck, the deck I always go to grab if we are doing high power. And honestly, I try to get one game in with this deck every time I play with paper or in paper. It's the Maelstrom Wanderer, Yidris. I love this guy. Now, this is a will deck. We try to use stuff like Liliana's Caress, and then we cast something like a Whispering Madness. That way, whenever our opponents are discarding cards, we are dealing a lot of damage to them, and eventually they just die. I have done over 40 damage in one turn with this guy, and it just feels so amazing. We are also playing Waste Not. If you ever cast a Waste Not and then resolve an Underworld Breach with a will in your graveyard, yeah, you do just win the game. It's honestly pretty busted, but again, this is my most powerful deck. I am running the Top Deck Tutors as well. Not only does it set up your Cascade, but additionally, Top Deck Tutors, I heard they're just pretty good, right? And then an underrated card I don't see enough people running is Titan's Nest. This has generated me a ton of mana. The fact that you can just exile the useless cards from your graveyard to generate mana to to then wheel again and fill your graveyard. It's kind of like an Underworld Breach, but for mana instead of just casting cards, right? So it's very useful. Gives you a ton of mana, gets you to what you need. I am playing Ugin the Spirit Dragon in this deck as well. Honestly, the deck might be better and more efficient if I change it for a different kind of board wipe, but Ugin was the very first card that I purchased above like $20. So again, a little bit of nostalgia there. Ugin will never leave this deck, and this is still the same card I bought that day. So again, you know, Magic's all about nostalgia. We do also have Tergrid in this deck. Kind of messed up. Does just win you the game if you resolve a will. I've never not thrown Tergrid on the battlefield, then wheeled and lost a game. It's kind of like Hullbreaker or Hull Breacher. You remember that card? Oh yeah, that card's busted. Banned, super banned, but busted. Again, that did see play in this deck for a little bit, and every time I resolved it, I did win the game. So kind of makes sense it's banned. But moving on from that, we are running an infinite combo with Sensei's Divining Top, Bolas's Citadel, and Aetherflux Reservoir. If you don't know how it works, it's kind of simple. The top just throws itself on top of your library, and then you can cast it using Bolas's Citadel, and you'll outgain the life you're using with Bolas's Citadel. You can essentially draw your entire library, but honestly, you're just trying to generate a ton of life gain and Death Star everybody down with the Aetherflux Reservoir. Another thing I wanted to ask you guys about this deck, hey, is Orcish Bowmaster's okay in this deck? I haven't pulled the trigger yet because I kind of don't think it is. But what do you guys think? You think we pull the trigger, we put Orcish in this deck, make the playgroup, you know, hate me a little bit? I don't know. I'm asking you, and I'm going to blame you guys, right? I'll be like, hey, they told me it was okay, right? We good? Okay, cool. And then, yeah, again, guys, that's the decks I'm playing right now. I do want to get a couple more. There's a couple on the channel that have just been so fun to play. I want to make in paper. So I'm definitely thinking about doing the 5-color one. I recently did, I forget the name of the commanders, but it's the Power Matters 5-color one that I recently did. It's super fun. Now, I'm rambling, so let's go ahead and end the video. If you guys see any of these decks and you do want an upgrade or a overview of the deck, I would be happy to upgrade some of these. They honestly need an upgrade, and I've been throwing them to the wayside just because I've been building new decks. So I'm happy to see or hear what you guys would like to see from these 9 decks that I talked about today. With that being said, I do want to thank my high contributing patrons, Newsome, Excessum, Chicken Salad. You guys are amazing. And everybody else, you guys are awesome. All the other patrons that join me weekly on the on the weekly voted patron deck tech. Yes, you guys are amazing. With that being said, thank you for supporting the channel. I hope this helped you in your deck building endeavors, and I will see you in the next one.